Good morning. Welcome back to our healing series. Today is going to be part 4 of our 4-part healing series. I've been talking about healing for the entire month of October, and it has been really healing. All pun intended. This topic came about because I have been talking to you guys for the last several months about those components of our life that impact our health outside of the kitchen and the gym. And I've been talking to you guys for the last several months about things like chronic stress, about the importance of living a life of purpose. I've been talking to you guys about things like your sleep hygiene. I've been talking to you guys about all of those other topics that impact our health outside of diet, outside of fitness. And so I decided to dedicate October to healing because it is one of the topics that I haven't talked about as much. And I wanted to impress upon you guys the importance of healing when it comes to being able to be the best version of yourself inside and out, from the neck down and the neck up. Because I am a whole food plant-based vegan. I am a former personal trainer. I value health at a very high level. But I will be doing you guys a disservice if I attributed the quality of my health to strictly my diet and my exercise regimen. And so the reason we've been talking about healing this month is because me healing from my dad leaving at a very young age has played a profound impact on my ability to be healthy today. It's played a profound impact on things that you wouldn't even imagine, like my ability to be consistent and disciplined in my health. It has played a profound impact on my ability to stick to things that I start. It has played a profound impact on everything that I do. And so I don't think healing is as big of a conversation when it comes to health as we should make it. And so I've made it my duty to make it that. And so welcome to part 4 of this 4-part healing series. Let's review if this is your first part, if this is your first time listening to this healing series. In the first part of this healing series, I talked to you guys I told you how I knew I had to heal from something. I talked to you guys about crying on the campus of Wayne State University when I realized my father didn't choose me. And in part 2 of our healing series, I shared with you guys what being unhealed cost me. And I broke down how me being unhealed caused me to have imposter syndrome. I broke down how being unhealed cost me my confidence. I talked about how being unhealed cost me to make decisions that cost me thousands of dollars because I was in my head telling myself stories about who I wasn't and what I was not capable of. Right. And then in part 3 of this healing series, it got good because I told you guys about what healing has allowed me to accomplish. And I talked to you guys about what life looks like for me on the other side of healing from abandonment from my father. And so, in the last part today, I want to share with you guys the most critical step in the healing process. Okay. And so, we're going to put healing, and my hope is that at the end of this conversation, and after you've really consumed these 4 parts in this series, that you can put healing at the top of the list when it comes to things that impacts your ability to live optimally, physically, mentally, emotionally, when it comes to longevity, when it comes to the quality of your relationships. Healing is going to play a major part in all of that. And so I have, as a coach, I'm a health coach, I'm a business coach, but I also run my mastermind. And then there we do a lot of personal development. And in those 3 spaces, health, business, and personal development, I talk to clients a lot about what they're personally experiencing, like the challenges they're having with trying to navigate life, the challenges that's preventing them from becoming healthy or from running a business. I talk to them a lot. And I had a conversation recently with someone about her healing journey. And I thought it would be so apropos for me to bring it to you guys and share with you guys a bit of that conversation so that you guys can understand this final, most critical step in the healing process. So I know I got a lot of new followers and a lot of new people. So let me acknowledge y'all. Hey, I'm Lisa A. Smith, plant-based health and business coach. And my favorite thing is to come on here every Monday at 10 a.m. EST. Probably the worst time of the week, but it's the best time for me. Y'all at work, y'all doing y'all thing, but we're gonna find a way to get it in. And so my favorite thing is to come on every Monday, 10 a.m. EST, and talk to you guys about different aspects of your health that you need to be mindful of and channeling energy toward, so that you can be the most optimal version of yourself. Because I didn't become the most optimal version of myself when I lost 65 pounds years ago, when I adopted a whole food plant-based vegan diet years ago, when I started mastering exercise science. I became the best version of myself when I started doing all the bigger stuff that requires a heavier lift outside of the kitchen. When I made tough decisions and eliminated chronic stress, right? When I made tough decisions and only decided to be in relationships and friendships, and professional relationships that were mutually beneficial. When I made the tough decision to work through my personal childhood trauma, which was my father deciding that he didn't want to be in my life after co-parenting with my mom for a while, and then abandoning your girl, right? And I haven't seen him since. And so I've done all of that work, and that is the version of me that you see today. And so when I tell like my plant-based story, people think like a plant-based diet is a panacea. It's not. It will help you prevent heart attacks and stroke, the number one cause of death in the US, but it's not all the work that we have to do to be the best version of ourselves. So let's get into our final installment in this healing series here in October. And this is the most critical step in the healing process. And that critical step is wound care. It's wound care. So you would think, the most damaging part about being unhealed, or getting hurt, should I say, is the trauma, the infliction, right? It's getting hurt, right? And so for me, when my dad decided he was going to stop co-parenting with my mom and stop picking me up for visitations, and doing the quality time thing many, many years ago when I was young, I think I was still in elementary school when he stopped visiting me. That was painful for sure. Right. And then that manifested into years. And then I got into my mid 30s and discovered the pain, and then had to do something about it. And so all of that was a journey. Right. And so then getting into therapy and having to talk through the things that have bothered me and the ways in which I was triggered, that was a journey. But I believe, in hindsight, looking back on my particular journey today, to function as an adult, to function as a full-time entrepreneur, to function as a coach who was responsible for helping other people become the best versions of themselves, I believe the most critical component of healing for me is no doubt wound care. Okay. What up, YouTube? What's up, y'all? I'm looking here down on YouTube. I'm up here on Instagram. Y'all gonna see me back and forth today. So hello to everyone. I'm so happy to have y'all all here. So it's wound care. So let's talk about this. So let me tell you about this conversation that I had with a client recently, right? It was so juicy. So we were talking about healing, and she was like, well, how do you know when you're healed? She's like, how do you know? She was like, because I know part of the reason I struggle with imposter syndrome sometimes, and don't feel like I'm good enough to do certain aspects of my job and things that I'm responsible for. She said, I know that exists because of the relationship I had with my mom when I was younger, right? So the thing that she had been working through and trying to heal from was some things that happened in her childhood and the relationship she had with her mother. And she's like, but it's weird, because when I think about those things that happen in the relationship with my mom, it doesn't feel as painful as it used to feel. She's like, I don't feel like, it doesn't overwhelm me anymore. It doesn't bother me. Like, I know it happened, but it's not as bad as it used to be. She's like, but I do still have moments of imposter syndrome. And I do still have moments where I don't feel good enough. And as a result of that, I feel like maybe I'm not healed yet, because I still am triggered. Like, I still have these triggers where I get assigned a responsibility, and I instantly feel these feelings of inadequacy. And so she was asking me, she's like, Coach, like, how do I know if I'm fully healed, if I'm still having these feelings about myself that came from that experience, right? And I'm going to tell you guys what I told her. I said, do you know the purpose of shea butter? Now, I know both most of my followers are people of color. So y'all gonna feel me on this shea butter. Okay. She was a woman of color. And so for some reason, she told me what she said, with everything she just said, like, how do I know I healed? And the first thing that popped into my mind was shea butter, right? And so I'm like, do y'all know why we use shea butter? Like in the black people, we love shea butter, right? It's thick, it get the job done. There's no chemicals. If you natural like me, it's no none of chemicals and all this junk in it, perfumes, no colorants. And so I rocks with shea butter, right? I got some here. I should have brought it over here. So I was like, shea butter, why do we use shea butter? And she's like, what, Lisa? I'm talking about healing right now. And so one person in the group was like, so we won't be ashy. I'm like, true, 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 but that's not where I'm going. Keep going, keep going. They like dry skin. I'm like, yeah, yeah. I'm like, why do we use shea butter, y'all? And so everybody's throwing out all these answers and we're having a good time and we're laughing. And then finally, somebody said, to even out your skin tone, right? Rock with me here, y'all. Somebody said to even out your skin tone. I was like, exactly, exactly. I said, when you have maybe been hurt, if your skin, if you had a cut before, maybe if you had a burn before, maybe you had just something, some skin issue, and maybe it caused discoloration in your skin. One of the uses, one of the use cases for shea butter, one of the things that is purported to be able to do is to even out your skin tone. So if you have some dark spots, if you got some lighter spots, shea butter is supposed to help make that even. I told her, when you are triggered by a responsibility, and in that moment, you start feeling inadequate, you start feeling like you're not good enough, and you know those feelings of inadequacy come from your childhood. I said, that doesn't mean you're unhealed. It means you have a scar, right? And so what that means is you need a version of shea butter to even out your skin tone. So what shea butter does for our skin physically, right? Something like affirmations, scripture, meditation will do for your scars that you have emotionally. I said, when you are triggered in those moments, you don't necessarily, your whole life doesn't fall apart because of what happened to you. You have done a whole lot of work to overcome and heal from the thing that was traumatic for you. However, you still have a scar. I said those feelings and those intrusive thoughts of inadequacy is the scar. When we are broken, when the skin is broken, right? The body activates to rush to that place on our skin to heal it so it'll close up. But what is essentially happens, if you were burned somewhere, if you were cut somewhere, it's going to leave a scar. And so the same thing with us emotionally. If you were cut somewhere by someone you love, for me it was my dad, for her it was her mom, it's going to leave a scar. So you might have because she said, I feel like I'm 90% there, but I still have these thoughts and these feelings from time to time. Thoughts and feelings that are residue of what happened to you is not evidence that you're unhealed. And I told her the intrusive thoughts and the feelings of inadequacy, right, is the scar. Here's the thing we need to understand, though. Here's the crucial thing that we must understand about scars and about wounds is that when you have done most of the work to address the thing that you needed to heal from, it's likely going to leave a scar. There's evidence that you were wounded, but it doesn't mean you're unhealed. And sometimes when we don't forget what happened to us, and we remember it, and sometimes we reflect on it, and sometimes depending on how we're navigating life and what we're responsible for, we get triggered by those moments. But it is not the thought and it is not the feeling of inadequacy that's evidence that you are unhealed. It is what happens immediately after. It is what happens immediately after. So just like if you were cut in real life on your skin, and those of us who are maybe darker complected or people of color, we want something to now even out the skin tone. You might have a little burn here. You might have nicked yourself here. You were cut here. And so now that it has healed. The skin has closed up. There's maybe a little scab. It's not open anymore. The wound isn't open anymore. There's no chances for infection anymore. However, it is evidence that you were cut. There is evidence that you were burned. And that's what those thoughts are. Let me tell you what my scar was, right? So I told you guys that my dad left and decided to no longer co-parent with my mom and decided to no longer be in my life. So one of the patterns that I noticed about myself when I got older and started developing self-awareness was that I had developed this habit of leaving. Like my scar was when something didn't, like immediately when something didn't feel right, when something when I didn't like a situation, my go-to my go-to was to leave. It was like deuces. Like I preferred to leave situations than to fix situations. That was my scar from my dad leaving me. I'm like, he inadvertently taught me, like, if you don't want to do this, just leave. If you don't want to do this, just shut the whole situation down. Right. And so that was my scar. My thing was leaving. Her scar was when something came up that required her to perform in a certain way, she felt inadequate. She felt like she wasn't good enough. Right. My scar was, I'm going to abandon this whole situation. Right. And so I prefer to leave instead of fixing situations. And so that was what was left over for me. And so, and it doesn't mean that sometimes leaving wasn't the right answer, but I was using the wrong criteria to make the decision. I was using my feelings to decide every single time. And feelings have a place, but I needed better decision-making criteria. But my dad had taught me how to leave, and I'm like, forget it. I can be alone. I don't need none of this. I'll move away out of a city. I'll leave a job. I'll leave a person. Like I don't let friends go easily. Like you did what? I don't like that. I'm out. I don't Matter of fact, this how cold I was at leaving, y'all. I had a friend one time. I told y'all briefly about her last week. I told you I didn't want to be friends with her no more because she was stingy, right? Stingy with information. She had a really she said she had a really good therapist and she was in love with her new therapist. And then another friend of mine had a traumatic life event. She had lost a baby. And I went to this other friend and I'm like, yo, you said you just had a new therapist that you really love and enjoy. Do you mind giving me their information? Because I want to give it to my friend who's looking for a therapist to get through this traumatic life event that her and her husband just had. And she told me no. And I was like, oh, I ain't never talking to you again. Like to me, like that type of stinginess. I'm like, why you don't want to share your therapist? I'm like, y'all not gonna be in a session together. Like y'all two don't even know each other. My friend and my other friend. I'm like, I just want to share a resource. And she told me no. So I let myself out of her life, right? But she never knew why. So years later, she texted me and was like, I'm not sure what happened, but why aren't we like friends anymore? And I was like, oh, years ago when I asked you for your therapist because my other friend really needed help and you told me no, I decided that I didn't like that characteristic about you and I left. Now I decided to leave as opposed to fixing the situation. That probably could have been a relationship that was preserved had I used my communication skills and told her how I felt. But instead, I was like, I don't want no stingy friends. Now, the conversation could have still possibly resulted in us decided to go our separate ways because she could have stood 10 toes down and was like, nah, I'm standing by my decision. I don't see your point of view. I don't understand why I should share my therapist with you. So she could have stood by her situation and we still could have parted ways. But the point is, I never stuck around to find out. I decided that leaving your tail was the best. And I lost no sleep about it. And I eventually got to a point in my life after leaving so many situations like that, like, Lisa, you got to start evaluating things. Everything don't have to be left on the side of the car. Like you don't let your dad teach you how to abandon stuff, right? And so that was my scar. Like my thing was as soon as things got uncomfortable, as soon as I saw something that I didn't like, and instead of addressing it and having adult conversations and maybe looking at what role I played in the situation, I'm just like, shut it all down. I'm out. I done left people. I done left friends. I done left gigs. I don't care. Right. And so I had to mature into a place where I had to practice wound care. I had to recognize that me leaving situations was not the best response every single time. And so I had to do something about my preference for abandoning things and people, right? Without explanation at that. It's like, yeah, you can lead a friendship, but tell the girl why. Like, what is you doing? Right? Because we were super cool, like super cool. And so, like, so that's so what I told my client is what I'm telling you guys, which is what I had to tell myself first, right? Number one, just because when you've done the work, it doesn't mean there's not a scar. And sometimes those scars manifest as things like, I'm not enough, or it manifests as, I don't know how to celebrate accomplishments because I was always told to dim my own light. Or it might manifest as soon as I see something I don't like, instead of talking it out like an adult, I leave, right? And this is where wound care had to come into place. And so for me, my shea butter, the thing that was going to even out my skin tone, even out the healing process for me, was I had to start meditating. I had to start doing way more personal development work and get to know myself better. I got into a personal development community, and in that community, they use an assessment. And this assessment teaches you what your natural strengths are and what your natural limitations are. And I mastered that assessment about myself. I started studying myself like, oh, I do that. And that is not a healthy way to handle situations. And so for me, my shea butter, my wound care was personal development. It was developing a super high level of self awareness. These are my natural strengths. These are my natural limitations. These are my natural preferences that don't serve me. I had to be aware that my preferences don't always serve me. My preference is to leave everything, but Lisa, that doesn't work. Because do you know how many assistants and people I've been through in my company alone? And I used to blame people. I used to be like, why can't I find a good assistant? Why can't I find a good administrative assistant? Because I would abandon every person every time they didn't do the job the way I wanted them to do it. I didn't look in the mirror and say, well, did you train them properly? Did you give them solid, clear direction? Did you reinforce them when they did do things right? I would just abandon every assistant every time. Like, you're not excellent. You're not excellent. And then I'm on social media making posts like, you need to have a spirit of excellence when you work for somebody. Girl, you need to be a better leader and learn how to train people. What is you doing? Right. But my abandonment, my scar was so big, and I wasn't practicing proper wound care, that I would just think it was everybody else that was the problem. Like, girl, you ain't never gonna have a team if every time somebody's imperfect, you run for the hills, right? And so I think that is going to be helpful for a lot of you who are on your healing journey, or maybe again, the wound has closed, but the scar is still there. And so for you, number one, identify what your scar is. Identify your proclivities to certain behaviors that is a result of what you had to heal from. Because it doesn't mean you're not healed, but you're not practicing wound care. Am I making sense? Because I got one more analogy for this that I'm about to bring to you guys. But give me a thumbs up or a heart to let me know that what I'm saying is like really making sense. Is this making sense? Like, Jacqueline, the wrong criteria for making decisions, 100%. So, okay. Okay. Thank you guys. Somebody said you speaking with so much clarity. Okay, good. All right. So let me give you an example that is so clear in the health space. Okay. So, as a plant-based health coach, you guys know I'm the founder of the Plant Protocol 30-day vegan, salt, oil, and sugar-free challenge, right? So twice a year, spring, winter, we do this 30-day vegan challenge. And we're coming up on our next one, which is going to start in January. And because we remove sugar from people's diet for this challenge so that they can get healthy, it becomes a big deal because sugar is so addictive. And I call sugar a narcotic. So sugar is a narcotic, right? It really hijacks your brain, it hijacks your body. It's just a terrible substance. Refined sugar, right? We still eat fruit, y'all. Everybody calm down. But but refined sugar is such a toxic substance. So let me tell you what happens when people try and give up sugar. So when people work with me and work with us at the Plant Protocol, a lot of people come in with a sugar addiction right now. I apologize to anybody who's offended by the word addiction. But anything that has more power over you than you have over it is a problem. And I'm telling people they're coming in overweight, they're coming in diabetic, they're coming in hypertensive, they're coming in with autoimmune conditions, they're coming in with kidney failure, they're coming in with cancer, they're coming in with skin issues, they're coming in with reproductive health issues. And I'm telling people, I'm like, listen, at the root of all those conditions is inflammation. Sugar is one of the top causes of inflammation in the body. We have a no sugar protocol. We do not have a moderation protocol. We have a no sugar protocol because you're coming in and you're already compromised. Your body is compromised or your mind is compromised. You're coming in with depression. You're coming in with anxiety. You're coming in with brain fog. Sugar is one of the top causes of brain fog. So I have to explain to our participants in the challenge and our students in our coaching programs that we remove sugar for all of these reasons: inflammation, right? Dehydration, like neuropathy. And I'm teaching them this stuff, right? And so here's what happens, okay? People come in and they start following our protocol and they're feeling better and they're doing the work. We have superstars who, like, Lisa, you said don't touch sugar. I'm not touching sugar, right? And they go through the cravings, they go through the withdrawals like anybody else, but they have that strong desire to get the result. They have that strong desire to get the weight off. They have that strong desire to get off the medication. Like, they're like, I'm sick of not being clear. I'm sick of not having enough energy to start my own business after working for somebody else for 8 hours. And so they're motivated in all the right ways. Okay. So they give up the sugar, they do the work. Here's what ends up happening. During one of our coaching sessions or during one of our live classes, they come to me and they say, Lisa, I think I still have a problem with sugar. And I say, why do you believe that? And they say, because I'm still craving sugar. So they do all the work. They're like, it's been 30 days, Lisa. I haven't touched it. You said don't touch it. I stopped putting it in my coffee. I stopped pouring it in my tea. I stopped dumping it in my oatmeal. I stopped my late night cookie habit. I stopped devouring a sleeve of cookies while I'm watching my favorite show. Lisa, I'm doing the work. However, help me, because I must not be fixed. I must not be healed, because I'm not healed from my sugar addiction, because I'm still craving the sugar. And here's what I have to tell them: evidence of being healed is not in the absence of the craving. Whether or not you still crave the sugar is not a determinant of whether or not you beat the sugar addiction. I tell them we all have a sweet tooth. You are going to actually crave sugar for the rest of your life. We all have a sweet tooth. We naturally crave something sweet. And they're like, what? I thought they thought they were looking for their cravings to go away for evidence of their healing. And I said, no, 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 no. It's not the evidence of cravings or the absence of cravings that's evidence that you're free from your sugar addiction. It is what happens afterward. I said, so what happens is you eat something savory, and then this is the language y'all use, you got to have something sweet, right? I said, it's the fact that you still crave it is not the problem. It is what happens immediately following the craving that's evidence of whether or not you've done the work. I want y'all to catch this. We're talking about healing. So it's not the fact that you have the sweet tooth, but before, when you had the sweet tooth, you would go to that sleeve of cookies. You would go to the candy jar. You would go to that chocolate. Now, when you have the cravings for something sweet, you're making a smoothie. You're making a smoothie bowl. You're going to some dates with some unsweetened chocolate and some coconut. You're going slicing up a banana, drizzling some peanut butter on it, and then putting a couple dates with it. Your life is different. You're healed. They thought the fact that they still had a sweet tooth was the problem. You think the fact that you still have intrusive thoughts is the problem. You think the fact that you still, Lisa, you think the fact that you still want to abandon every staff member and team member that doesn't do their job perfectly is the problem. You think the fact that you still have the desire to leave is the problem. It's not your problem, Lisa. It's what happens after you have the desire that's evidence of whether or not you are healed, right? So it's not the fact that you still have thoughts that tell you you're not good enough or you're inadequate because of what happened to you in your childhood. It's not the fact that you still have the urge to never spend money because you came from extreme poverty and that damaged your relationship with money. It's not the fact that you still hesitate to invest in yourself that's the problem. It's not the fact that you still want to leave everybody who are not excellent on day one, Lisa. It's not the fact that you still have feelings about inadequacy and imposter syndrome when you are tasked to do something that's hard. It's what happens after the thought. It's what happens after the craving. I said the sweet tooth is not the problem, it's the action that follows it that we are measuring our healing by. And that's the same thing I'm here to tell you guys. Don't let the fact that you still have the residue of the experience on you, those thoughts and those urges are residue that you have healed from something, but it's what happens after. So it's the fact that I go out of my way now to book a coaching session or a training session with my team to teach them the things that I need them to do better versus being like, before that conversation would be like, hey, this ain't working out. Good luck. That was the old conversation. The new conversation is, hey, why don't we take about an hour this week for me to sit down and walk you through this process so you can do it better next time? That's the healed me, right? It's the fact that you now go in the kitchen and you make a smoothie as opposed to going to the store and buying a honey bun and cookies. That's the evidence that you no longer have a problem with sugar. It's not the fact that you crave it. So I want you guys to have a different criteria for measuring whether or not you're healed. You are always going to have scars, right? And so your scars are the feelings that you have when you get uncomfortable, when it's time to maybe express yourself to somebody. That is just a scar. That is just a wound, but it is the wound care, right? And so what did I do to take me from abandoning everybody for whom I didn't think lived up to my standards, to now being able to, number one, express my dissatisfaction with a circumstance before leaving them, to now being able to stick and stay and try and fix it before I leave? What took me from leaving right away to staying and attempting to fix something? It is the wound care that happened in between. That was the therapy that I did. That was the personal development work that I did. That is me, taking assessments to better understand who I was naturally and what my natural strengths were. It is reflecting back on the things that I needed to heal from and better being able to draw out how I perform now as an adult that might have came from that situation and be like, oh, connecting the dots, like, I don't think the fact that my preference for abandonment, I don't think that's a coincidence when I was abandoned. Like, no, I'm gonna leave you for you leave me, player. Right now, I'm like, oh, we actually got to talk about this, and I got to tell you how I feel, and I gotta tell you why you shouldn't have been stingy with your therapist. You know what I'm saying? So that is the most critical step in the healing process, is being able to recognize the wound and then doing wound care and getting your version of shea butter to even out the skin tone. Like, that means you're evening out your emotional intelligence. You're evening out your personality. You're evening out your temper. You're evening out, what is your shea butter? What are you going to use to heal the scar? But I want you guys to know that scar is just an evidence that you were once broken, but you're not even anymore. And that is the most critical component of this whole entire healing journey, is being able to use a different criteria to make better decisions, where before you were making it from an unhealed, unhealthy place. Now you can make better decisions because you've done wound care. Y'all, when this came to me, when I got this divine download of like, okay, how am I gonna explain this to them, right? And I was like, y'all know I like using analogies. And so when I was thinking about the analogy that I wanted to use to explain the difference from being unhealed and just having a scar, and the word wound, like the divine download was like wound care, like teach them how to treat a spot on them that was once broken. Man, I started fist pumping. I'm like, I don't know if it's gonna land with them, but it hit me heavy. So I still geek out over my work when I create talks and stuff. So y'all don't mind me. I still geek out. But like, I hope that made total sense, because sometimes we think I still crave sugar, so I must have a problem with sugar. No. It's just like addicts. Like, I use I use some of the principles from AA, Alcoholics Anonymous, in the way I coach and the way I teach and the way I curate community, because I read their book and about how they have had such success on a model that is built on volunteers. Like the AA model, if you guys ever, like, if anybody likes to geek out on stuff like that, I would highly recommend studying. It's weird, but Alcoholics Anonymous, because over the years, the decades, they have built a model to help people that strictly relies on people's just willingness to do it. People aren't paid. They're supposed to stay anonymous. Like, it is so, their motto is so interesting. And, one of the things that, people who have had to live with like drug or alcohol addictions, they say is that you're always an addict, right? They're like, you can be 20 years clean, right? You can have went 20 years without touching a drop of alcohol or touching the drug, the substance or whatever, but they still always, in AA, they still always consider themselves addicts, right? Even though they could be 20 years clean. And I want you guys to understand the same thing. Like, going back to my sugar addiction analogy, like, you still crave it. So they might have moments in their lives where they go to would have been a drink. Their go to would have been a drug, right? But wound care, they've done the work. They got into community. They started doing the work to heal from that desire, from that proclivity to pick up that drink and pick. But it doesn't mean they're not still an addict, right? Even though they've been clean. So the same thing goes for all of us who all need to, or maybe need to be healed from something, needed to be or need to be healed from something. It's like, it doesn't mean you were never broken. So you're going to have probably moments in your life when things happen that take you back to that time, right? And the evidence of you being a better, healthier version of yourself is not the thoughts, it's not the desire for the drug, it's not the desire to run, it's not the desire to quit, it's not the desire to hoard money. It is what happens after the desire hits, right? Like, they might have the desire to drink, but then they activate another one of their tools that they got during wound care, and now they're able to make a different decision. But it doesn't mean they're not still an addict. And so that's it doesn't mean I wasn't hurt. It doesn't mean I wasn't broken. It doesn't mean I'm going to ever forget that my biological father decided not to choose me twice. If y'all didn't listen to episode 1, he decided not to choose me twice, right? But it is the fact. So I'm never going to forget that, right? That's going to live with me forever. But it's the point that I've done the wound care and it's no longer an open wound. So now I can actually get into healthy relationships with friends and partners, right? I can actually navigate conflict in a healthy way. I actually can navigate my role as a CEO with building a team in a healthy way. I'm not trying to leave everybody that makes one mistake. Like, it is so different on the other side of this, but it doesn't mean I'm not still an addict. Does that make sense, y'all? Okay, so I hope that makes sense. Jacqueline on YouTube says powerful download. Yay! Refined perspective. So I hope this was very helpful. This concludes our 4-part healing series. And so a lot of you guys have consumed a lot of my content about the importance of, outside of diet and exercise, the importance of things like eliminating chronic stress, the importance of things like living fully in your purpose, living a life of radical obedience. But I had to make sure that healing entered the conversation because it has been such a integral and critical part of who I am today. And I want the same thing for you guys. And so I'll do that more and more as I hit more stages, as I do more podcasts, as I get on other people's platforms more and more. I'm going to make sure I talk about healing as much as I talk about purpose, as much as I talk about obedience, as much as I talk about chronic stress, as much as I talk about all of those other things that causes our lives to be less than optimal. And so I hope you guys enjoyed this 4-part series. All 4 parts are available on my YouTube channel at Lisa Angel Smith. It literally says healing part 1, healing part 2, part 3, and today will be part 4. And then next month, I think for November, I'm going to start a brand new series for you guys. I'm still working out the kinks in my mind, so I'll let you guys know before next Monday when I schedule our live for next Monday. But I think because we're moving into this next 30-day vegan, salt, oil, and sugar-free challenge starting in January, I think some of what I want to focus on for us for the month of November is kind of around what it takes to do hard things. A lot of us have health challenges that have gone on much longer than they needed to be. Like we've been overweight for years. We've been medicated for years. We've been having stomach and gastrointestinal issues for years. Women having painful periods and skin issues for years. Men having erectile dysfunction and like hypertension issues for years. And I just don't understand. And so what I want to do, I know for a fact, being a coach nearly 10 years now, that it has nothing to do with the strategy. I mean, yeah, your diet is a problem. Your lack of exercise is a problem, but that it is the issue is that's not the biggest problem. And I think sometimes when we know we need to eat better, or I know I need to start moving, or I know I need to drink water, we believe those are our biggest problems when it comes to getting healthy, and it's not. And so, what I think I want to do for the month of November for us is lead us into a conversation around the beliefs that underscore our decisions. And so I don't know, would that be helpful for you guys to talk about like why when I start, I can't finish? Why I start really excited, I do really good in the beginning, then I fall off and then I yo-yo and then I gain the weight back or I find my numbers creeping back up. And people like, well, maybe I just need to make a different tweak to my diet, or maybe I just need to make a different tweak to my exercise regimen, or I just need to turn up the volume, run faster, run harder. And that's not the part of the mechanism that's the most broke. I mean, yeah, maybe you can stand to do more, but that ain't the part of the mechanism that we need to focus on. And so me being a coach for so long and working with so many people who have struggled with consistency, struggle with discipline, struggle with motivation, struggle with belief. I believe there's something that underscores that lack of discipline and that lack of consistency. And it's not tweaking the strategy. It's like, all right, I tried plant-based. Maybe now I need to try keto. That ain't the strategy ain't the issue. Keto got people results. Plant-based got people results. Is you the problem, first of all. Okay. So cats out the back there, you the problem. But I'm gonna tell you, but you think your problem is I need to will myself to be more consistent. I just need to do it. That's what people all say. They say all the time when they come to me. I'm like, why you haven't reached this health goal yet? I just need to do it. I'm like, oh, okay. Yep. You need help. So I think that's what I'm going to talk about for the month of November, to like what kind of lies beneath our inability to be successful in our goals, whether that goal is in health, career, relationship, finances, whatever it is. I think I want to get deeper into you guys' psyche and explain some of the patterns I've seen. So that's the plan for November. I'm going to work out what those episodes will be for us in our lead up to our next 30-day challenge, so you guys can be prepared to outperform your last attempt at this. Okay. That's always the goal. Just outperform your last attempt. Okay. And so Marja on YouTube says, thank you for helping me along this journey. It's been my pleasure. Thank you guys for hopping on today. If you're not already registered for our next 30-day vegan SOS free challenge, salt, oil, and sugar free challenge, please do so. I'll make sure the links get dropped. They'll be in the show notes on this episode on YouTube. And all over the place on Instagram. In my bio, you can comment challenge on one of my posts and we'll send you the link to get registered. So it's a free challenge. You can't upgrade to VIP because some people like the front row like me, but it is a free challenge. And during that 30 days, I'm telling you right now, we get people off of medications, weight loss, food addictions. Oh my God, energy levels go crazy. It's just things can change when you really adhere to a proper dietary protocol. But it's hard to adhere to it when you have some beliefs in the way, some limiting beliefs getting in the way. And so I'll address those things starting next week in the month of November. But until then, I will see you guys. Make sure you have a phenomenal, healed rest of the year. I hope this